Some shows talk about one team. Other shows barely talk sports. This show will talk Packers, Brewers, and Bucks every day. Every day. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily with Steve Sparky Fifer, served up by Wendy's on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network. Download the Wendy's app today.
Welcome in. What in the world is going on in the National Football League? Holy cow, what is going on in the National Football League? The National Football League has turned into the National Basketball Association. It really has. It's turned into the NBA at the NBA trade deadline. Like, I thought that there was a chance we might see a trade or two or something along those lines. Never in my wildest dreams did I think Sauce Gardner would get traded to the Colts. Quinnen Williams from the Jets would get traded to the Cowboys. There's just no way. I think you saw any of that happening when you woke up this morning. Now, Easton Butler, who we had on yesterday, Insider with the Packer Report, had put out on Twitter that he had heard about this Sauce Gardner Colts thing. What was it? Late October, when he tweeted out this thing of a guy just buckling in, and everybody thought it was Packers related, like the Packers were about to make a big deal or something like that. He quotes me and he's like, this is what that was all about. And then you listen to some of these guys talking, and this Colts Sauce Gardner thing has been in the works for weeks. Apparently, they've been working to get this deal done. And that's mind-blowing, because this dude, he's not a free agent after this year, Charlie, Sauce Gardner.
He's locked up, baby. 5.5 years left.
I mean, again, just mind-blowing. So we'll get into the NFL trade deadline and all of that stuff for sure coming up at 3:20, because the trade deadline still goes until 3 o'clock. So 57 minutes left for our guy, Brian Gutekunst, to shock the world and pull off another big move here. Because, again, now the big move is a defensive tackle. That's where I'm at. If we start talking about, okay, who are you going to get? Quinnen Williams would have been nice, but you could get Devondre Sweat from the Titans for a hell of a lot less than what they gave up to get Quinnen Williams, right? So if you can get Devondre Sweat, who you'll have for a couple of years for, I don't know, second-round pick or something like that massive humanity to put inside with Devontae Wyatt, I think you feel really, really good about your situation at that point, because again, the dude is gigantic and has been effective for the Titans. Now, whether or not the Titans will move him or not, I have no idea. They clearly are not close to competing at this point.
No, they're not. But Devondre Sweat was the guy you were looking for 2 years ago in that draft.
That's right.
I mean, I'm glad
you remember.
He's a player who's going to be in the middle of the field, who's going to help with that run defense that apparently the Packers are struggling with so bad all of a sudden. I mean, these are all things that I think Brian Gutekunst has to think about. At the same time, Sparky, how realistic is it that Brian Gutekunst is going to do anything at this trade deadline? Like, do you feel confident that there's any move coming for this team at all?
Listen, we had Easton Butler on yesterday. He's far more connected than I am around the league and so forth. And Easton Butler put out multiple tweets today on guys that have been called from other teams asking about different players on the Packers. He put out another tweet of guys the Packers have reached out to talk to. Mayer, the tight end for the Raiders, he put out that they had called on him earlier today. And then a Raiders account quote tweeted that and said, hearing the exact same thing about the Packers and Mayer. Then there was talk of they reached out to Cleveland for Njoku about that as a possibility at tight end. So I personally don't think I would invest my time and effort in trying to get a tight end.
He also put out there Chigoziem Okonkwo from Tennessee.
Another tight end, right? I'll just say this. We're going to talk about Tucker Kraft and how do you replace Tucker Kraft and all that coming up the next segment. I would not make a move for a tight end. My own personal feelings. I don't go get another tight end. I play with what I got. I'm not as concerned about that. I'm more concerned about getting a big defensive tackle that's going to be here for a couple of years to play next to Devontae Wyatt, who's at least here through next year because they picked up that fifth-year player option. And now I don't got to worry about my middle of my defensive line, right? I got a big young guy that's mobile, that's a gigantic piece of humanity. I'd rather focus on that. Cornerback, sure. Would love a cornerback. Would have loved Sauce Gardner. But realistically, of what's left out there, it doesn't appear that there's much impact probably left out there of what they could probably go get at this point.
Could you imagine Micah Parsons and Sauce Gardner on the same defense? I think you would have the most personality possible out there on that defense.
Financially, though, there's,
no shot.
No, if you hadn't paid Jordan Love yet, maybe then you have that conversation of, okay, maybe this is a possibility, could happen. They figure out how to get this deal done, but it just does not appear at this point that they're going to be able to bring on that type of contract. So it's going to have to be somebody on a cheaper contract. Now, I will say this also was from last night. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, free agent cornerback Asante Samuel Jr., who was out with that spine injury, has been cleared to play, talking with several teams, could take visits this week. Easton Butler quote tweeted that last night and said, I can confirm Green Bay is very interested and will plan a workout for him. So if you think maybe you have an in on Asante Samuel Jr., who maybe wants to come back and compete for a Super Bowl and all of that, then cornerback doesn't become that necessary thing that you have to go get at this point, and you can switch gears and go, hey, look, let's go get a defensive tackle, because more times than not, a big fat guy for the middle of the line is going to cost less than a premier cornerback at this point in the National Football League.
True, but a non-premier cornerback, a guy that is just a rotational piece that can help just strengthen the depth of this room,
but how much
doesn't cost as much either.
Okay, so say a rotational cornerback, right? So how much of an upgrade is that with what you currently have, knowing Hobbs is hurt again?
Right now feels like a lot. I mean, honestly, even when Hobbs was out there, it might be a blessing that he's not on the field anymore, because more of these guys can get a better feel for their rotation when he's not there and trying to be forced into the lineup in some degree. I mean, going out there and just, again, trading for depth, I think is really what this room is looking for. Keyshawn Nixon in smaller doses has been really good this season. The problem is when he's been given those extended periods is when he gets exposed a little bit. I think you could say the same thing about Carrington Valentine as well. Just getting more guys to get into that group and give this defense different looks and the ability to give those other guys rest and be able to build up that stamina is huge for this Green Bay Packers defense.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. So we've heard this in the past, and it's something that I heard Bruce Arians say earlier today. I think it was on Pat McAfee's show. When you have a chance to win, you don't worry about later. You try to win right now, right? So they were talking about the Colt Sauce Gardner trade. He's like, look, if you feel like you got a chance to win the AFC because Kansas City doesn't look so big, Kansas City anymore, Baltimore's been a struggle, everything that's happened in the AFC, Joe Burrow was out hurt. So if you feel like, okay, I got a chance right now to go do this, push chips in and go. Now, the other thing we have to remember about that situation is changing of the guard at the owners, right? Irsay passes away. The three daughters, the new blood, they're in play, right? And if they go to Chris Ballard and go, we don't care, we want a Super Bowl, let's go, then Chris Ballard feels like, okay, I guess if they're telling me to trade once, because, Chris Ballard is another version of Ted Thompson, if we're being honest. That man does not like trading draft picks, doesn't like going all in, doesn't like doing any of that stuff if he doesn't have to. That's why we've been rotating through 100 quarterbacks when you're watching the Colts play football right now. And now they apparently might have got lucky on Daniel Jones for a year. So why not take advantage of it?
Exactly. You're going to have to reset that quarterback room, which means you're probably going to have to reset the entire offense again here soon. Why not take advantage of the opportunity you have right now when the rest of the AFC doesn't look as strong as it has in the past? The Bills and Chiefs look good, but they don't look unbeatable.
And then if you look at it from the Packers standpoint, the same thing applies for the Packers right now. And I don't care about the Carolina game, so forget the Carolina game. Just look at the NFC. There's no dominant team right now in the NFC. No dominant team. I said yesterday, who knows, man? If the Bears get hot at the right time, they might sneak out and get into the playoffs or maybe even win the damn division, depending on how this all plays out.
They have one of the easiest schedules in the second half of the year here.
Correct. Yeah. So you're halfway through the season. So from a talent perspective, if you're Brian Gutekunst and you're looking at this Packer roster, aren't you looking at going, well, damn. Like, if I had one more really premier player to the defensive side of the ball, we're in a really good position. Because up to that Carolina game, people haven't been running against him because the offense has been getting up. So now if I get a big dude to put in the middle of that line that can not only stop the run, but push two dudes backwards into the quarterback and help move that pocket backwards. So when Micah Parsons screaming around one end and Rashawn Gary's screaming around the other end, and they meet at the quarterback, guy can't go forward because dudes push two guys back into him. Perfect compliment to Devontae Wyatt. And you replace TJ Slaton finally, because to this point, it has not happened. Colby Wooden, nice player. Brooks, nice player. But they're not the big, wide run stuffer that you need on this defensive line.
And you have the pieces. You have draft picks still. I know you traded some of them for Micah Parsons, but you still have other ones that aren't as valuable to you right now in this point in the rebuild of this team. And then you also have depth at other positions that's maybe a little excessive. I think you could look at the linebacker room and say there's a guy, one or two guys there that could potentially be traded. I think you could look at the wide receiver room. I know a lot of people hate to say that, especially with the injuries that we keep seeing all season, but there's probably one to two guys that could be traded there. You have options that gives you the perfect opportunity right now to make that type of move.
I got it. We got a post in here. You could jump aboard as well. This wasn't supposed to be our topic, but we got talking NFL trade deadline, so we're just going to keep it here, and we'll talk more about Tucker Kraft. Charlie Sounds of the Day got moved to 240 today. Why? Because on Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's today. John McLaughlin, Bucks legend, will join us coming up at 3 o'clock today. Tyler Dunn of GoLongTD.com, he'll join us coming up at 3:40 today. Get his thoughts on the NFL trade deadline today. His thoughts on Jordan Love and the Packers as well. So that's a busy 3 o'clock hour. So Charlie Sounds today moved up to 240 today because of that. Read that one, not the first one about Giannis and the Pacers, but read the second one, please.
Gutekunst, this is Pete on the Dugout chat, says Gutekunst is no horse who is the ultimate wheeler and dealer.
Okay. So prior to the Micah Parsons deal, I'd say I probably agree with you. Now, free agency wise, he's had some fair amount of success in free agency, right? It doesn't appear these two guys he signed this year, Hobbs and Banks, are going to contribute much this year. So maybe those don't work out. But prior to these two guys, he's hit on a lot of the guys that he's brought in via free agency, and it's worked. So from that perspective, I think he's fine. From a drafting perspective, he's better than John Horst. Let's just move on from that. I don't even want to hear. That's not even up for debate. If you want to talk about making trades, stretching contracts and stuff like that, yeah. John Horst, you just bow to John Horst. You're the man, right? You know how to do trades better than most people in professional sports at this point and make it work. So, and in fairness, John Hammond was the guy that he was under in Detroit and came to Milwaukee. John Hammond, we didn't call him, Dealer John for nothing. That man made trades at every trade deadline, regardless if he needed to or not. He just loved making trades. And the great thing about John Hammond was if he made a mistake, he'd trade that player and try and rectify that mistake by making another trade to try and rectify the trade that he messed up. So yes, John Horst is amazing. I'm not going to argue about that with his trade history. He definitely knows what he's doing. But going back to like what Bruce Arians said, if you put all your chips in Micah Parsons and said, let's go, and now you're in season halfway through, you're leading your division, and you're one of the youngest teams in the National Football League, and there's no dominant team, why not go Rams-like? Why not be like the Rams when they were going for it year in and year out and trading draft picks left and right and saying, to hell with it, we're going to win one of these things one way or the other. And they got there and they lost, and then they got there and they won with Stafford, right? But they kept going until they finally finished. You are in the exact same position right now to where you can push in again and try and win this thing right now and worry about the future in the future.
I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like the Rams moving back to LA gave them that opportunity to say, screw it, let's make this big time move and make a bunch of moves and kind of change. It just felt like it was almost like a new team. And I feel like a lot of these teams that are moving around places are starting up in a lot of these leagues right now. Like you look at the NHL or just the WNBA, the smaller leagues, for example, and how those teams go about trying to make a name for themselves almost immediately in their respective leagues. I think the Rams kind of wanted to do that same thing. Moving to LA is just kind of to rejuvenate their organization because in St. Louis, it was dying out a little bit. And because of that, they wanted to go out and draft that Todd Gurley and make him that star of that franchise. And the Jared Goff early on
Todd Gurley.
and try to take those two guys. And that's what got them to that first Super Bowl. And it was a really awesome run for them. And they realized that they have it right here. We need to go for it right away. But because it's kind of a new situation, it makes it easier to say that. When you're the Green Bay Packers and have so much history tied behind what is the team right now, specifically like Jordan Love being compared to Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, Matt LaFleur working with these guys and trying to reach up to that same standard that past coaches have had for him, it feels like you don't have that opportunity to take that big jump because it is too different from what people have done in the past, and you've already strayed off that path. And I think that's something that maybe scares Brian Gutekunst a little bit.
Yeah, no question about it. Got a Nicolay Law text line text coming in here. You can hop aboard as well. 414-677-1250. 414-677-1250. Find us on socials at WI Sports Radio. Stream us live on X or on YouTube. I got one from the 262. Sparky, we need a BJ Raji type defensive lineman. Travis from Kenosha, formerly of lacrosse, and I will then say formerly of Quaker Steak and Lube back in the day where I met Travis. T'Vondre Sweat. Let's revisit T'Vondre Sweat because I'm not letting this go. If you put his name into Google, Charlie, you will see all of the buzz and rumor around T'Vondre Sweat possibly getting traded from the Titans. The Kansas City Chiefs are one of the teams named as one of the teams might be interested in T'Vondre Sweat.
Pair him with Chris Jones, yeah.
He is. Now, again, get ready here. 6'4", 366.
Ooh, unit, baby.
Now, that's how he's listed. How much do you think he actually weighs if he's listed at 366?
Oh, for a guy like that, usually those bigger dudes where they want him to be bigger, he's probably actually a little lighter than that 366. I bet he's probably closer to like 350-ish.
That would be amazing if that's actually true. I would tend to believe he's probably heavier. But I hope you're right.
No, they want the little guys to look heavier. They give them a couple of inches and stuff. Actually, they give everybody the extra inch, even in D3 football all the way down there. They give everybody the extra inch. But the bigger guys, you want them to seem bigger than they actually are.
T'Vondre Sweat right now is on his rookie deal. Okay, it's got a cap hit of $2.1 million. T'Vondre Sweat is 25 next year. He's going to make 2.6. T'Vondre Sweat is 26 in 2027. It's going to make $3 million. And then he hits free agency in 28. Folks, this is the play, man. He is dirt cheap. All you're talking about more than likely are draft picks at this point. That's really what we're talking about here, right? Or potentially a wide receiver, right? So would you give up, say, a third or fourth round pick and Devontae and Wicks in order to get T'Vondre Sweat here? Would you give up a Wicks or a Heath or one of those wide receivers and a draft pick to get it? Because Cam Ward needs weapons, man. I mean, that's the deal right now. He needs weapons.
I would. If I'm Brian Gutekunst, yes, you move on, you get a little bit of that extra depth that you don't really need out of there in order to bring in talent that you do need. So he's a player that's going to eat up the run game like we've talked about. But it also, I think, puts a little pressure on Matt LaFleur in the situation that he's in right now, where Tucker Kraft is injured with this torn ACL out for the season, to say, you know what? We're going to get rid of one of these other depth wide receiver pieces. Matthew Golden's right here, man. Let's get him more involved. Let's find the game plan to get him more involved. I'm kind of forcing you to get him more involved by moving on from another wide receiver for you.
Yes, no doubt. Jordan Schultz, who at one point was ESPN. Where was Jordan Schultz last time? He's been all over, hasn't he been?
We looked it up.
So he's got his own YouTube page now and all of that. The Schultz Report, 389,000 followers. Breaking, Breece Hall of the Jets wants to be traded, I'm told, a little over 1 hour until the deadline, but Breece wants to be out. That was just a little while ago. So we'll see. We'll see if Breece Hall gets his way. Charlie, you and I were talking about where Breece Hall could potentially end up. Denver makes a lot of sense.
I think Sean Payton would love to have a player like that in his backfield, and he already has a strong stable, but it hasn't lived up to the expectations that I think J.K. Dobbins set last season, that R.J. Harvey set as a rookie. Yep. So bringing in a player like this could be a real game changer for him, could be a real game changer for my fantasy team too, because I need Breece Hall to be more consistent.
What is this? It's all about you and your fantasy team?
Yes,
That's what it is?
It is. Maybe it's the Kay Adam route. She goes and tries to get players to go places and stuff to help her favorite teams.
That's true.
Maybe I can get Brees Hall to go places to help my favorite team, my fantasy team.
I also have Brees Hall on my fantasy team, so I would love to see Brees Hall get moved to a real team. That would be fine. Coming up next, how would you go about replacing Tucker Kraft? Maybe your route is trading for another tight end here at the deadline. Maybe it's a different way of running this offense. We'll discuss that straight ahead. Hop aboard. Nicolay Law Talk and text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250. Socials at WI Sports Radio. And when the Bucs win, you win at Wendy's. And guess what? They beat those Pacers last night. Hold on. They beat the Pacers last night. Blank the booze from Miles Turner. Despite.
There you go.
I knew it started with a D and I could not come up with it. So despite those boos on Miles Turner, and despite the fact that Miles Turner maybe didn't play all that great, Giannis and the crew get a win on a big turnaround jumper from Giannis. When the Bucs win, you win at Wendy's. After every Bucs win, stop by any participating Wisconsin Wendy's for a free small vanilla or chocolate frosty classic. No purchase necessary. This offer is only good for 24 hours after a win. Act fast and get that free small frosty classic at Wendy's. Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's. Live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky here. Oh, man. We have got some more Packer stuff. Our guy, Easton Butler, who we had on yesterday, Packer Report, after we started the show, tweeted out the Packers have reached out to the New York Giants about offensive tackle Evan Neal, per sources. Sauce! Curious. What's Evan Neal making? Evan Neal ain't making nothing. Evan Neal is making $7.8 million in 2025. 2025, that is what he is making. Then, I'm trying to look at this, try to figure this out. It looks like after this year, it looks like a club option for 26 and then free agency, but also it's unrestricted free agency in 26. So I think he's a free agent after this year. So I think this is going to be a rental if they were to make a move to go get him, or they go get him and they extend him. I don't maybe. I don't know. That guy was the number 7 overall pick in the draft in 22.
And he's the guy I really liked when he was drafted by the New York Giants. I thought that was a really good draft class that they had there. And Thibodeau has worked out on the other side of the ball, but Evan Neal just hasn't been able to find his role on the offensive line, and they've given him opportunities at basically every single position in that group. And just his athleticism that he has so naturally, you can see he has almost no football IQ. And he doesn't know how to do the technique right. And he's an athlete, which is fun. That's awesome. That's what the Packers love.
Right.
But how different is that from Jordan Morgan right now, where you're not really having the technique that you need in order to win play after play?
But it's a rental, and does experience play out over Jordan Morgan if he's brought in for the rest of the year? He's young.
He's 1 year more experienced than Jordan Morgan at this point. That's not that much, man. That's really not there. And he spent, I think, half of one of those years injured. He's
been in the league since 22, so this is his 4th year in the league. He's got 2 years on Jordan Morgan.
That's still not enough, but he spent one of those years injured. He's a guy who hasn't been a consistent starter. So, no, he doesn't have that much more experience over Jordan Morgan at this point.
Okay, I got another one for you here from our guy, Easton Butler. This was 4 minutes ago. 6 teams still calling for Miami running back Devon Achane. But Miami reluctant to move him because Miami Mike McDaniels wants him for the foreseeable future. Those teams are the Packers, the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Rams, the Chargers, and the Texans all interested. If you get Achane, that means Emmanuel Wilson, it's been real, but you're no longer the backup running back because I would imagine you're going to use Achane as that home run threat.
I would imagine that also means Josh Jacobs after this season probably isn't in the plans. That's kind of something you have to think about, too. If you make a trade like this, a guy like Achane is a young player that's going to be under contract, or hopefully that you can get under contract for a little bit longer, for a little bit cheaper than what you're paying a Josh Jacobs. I mean, we talk about Elgton Jenkins being a cut candidate in the offseason. I think Josh Jacobs could be in that room.
So yesterday, if you missed it, we talked about Elgton Jenkins. If they cut Elgton Jenkins after this year, they save $20 million in cap space going into next year, okay? Josh Jacobs, I just looked him up while you were talking. He'll be 28 next year. He's got a cap hit of 14.6. If they cut him, the cap hit is $6 million. So they save $10 million. If he plays through 26, if they cut him going into 27, a cap number is 16.6, a dead cap of $3 million. So you're right. If they get Achane and he works out, maybe they do move on from Jacobs after this year and punt him at that point and then decide to let go with Achane going forward. But has Achane done enough to prove that he's a number 1 running back in this league? Is he that guy for the Packers?
He's been basically the only bright spot of the most incompetent team in football right now in the Miami Dolphins, man.
I mean, the Jets are there.
The Jets are pretty close. But, like, the Jets, I feel like they have an excuse. You could tell they were a young team. They didn't have a starting quarterback that a lot of people were confident in. Even their own team wasn't really that confident in Justin Fields. I feel like that's the team that you saw that kind of dysfunction coming from. Miami, didn't have a bright future this season, but you were expecting more of a 500 team. They had strong players in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle going into the year. Tua had a good season 2 years ago, so hopefully you could bring that back maybe a little bit. Devon Achane's been the only consistent piece on that team.
Achane right now this year so far, 121 carries, 606 for a 5-yard average, 3 touchdowns along with 49 yards. He's got 43 catches for 274, 6.4 yard average, and 4 touchdowns. So 7 touchdowns on the year already between running and receiving. That's why I think, to me, he makes sense as that other guy to Josh Jacobs. And it might be at the expense of Emmanuel Wilson, who Wilson's looked good. In the times he's had to be in there, he looks really good.
He runs hard. He's a guy who's going to go out there and give you his all every single play. But A-Chain, if he's going to be a threat in the receiving game for a Jordan Love, who, as we learned yesterday as well, just loves to throw behind the line of scrimmage, apparently up there with Kyler Murray as one of the best in the league, a running back who can be a threat out of the backfield in the same fashion that I think a Tucker Kraft could be within 5 yards, where he can make people miss after he gets the ball, is something that could be really beneficial for this offense.
Yeah, no question about it. Adam Schefter tweeting, there have been 6 trades today, tied for the third most on any trade deadline day going back to 1990. There were 10 trades on November 1st of 22, 8 trades on November 5th of 2024. This has been, again, if I am the National Football League and I'm looking at this, I'm Roger Goodell. Man, we have made this into a day. I mean, if you can get this type of movement with guys like Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner and these guys getting traded year to year on deadline day, now it becomes like a holiday. Now, because that's what the NBA trade deadline is. Everybody gets all excited to see what star players get dealt. Hell, people in Memphis are already planning on John Morant getting traded. So that's what this can become. For years, this day meant nothing to Packer fans. Meant nothing.
The only
so many teams didn't even bother to pick up the phone at NFL trade deadline day.
The only difference between the NFL and like the NBA and MLB when this happens, if a New York team was trading somebody to Indianapolis, Adam Silver, Rod Manfred would be so angry. That's the big difference.
There is that. There is. There is that. You are absolutely right about that. All right, coming up, we're going to get to Charlie's Sounds of the Day, and you won't want to go anywhere. Don't miss that. Hey, Potawatomi Casino Hotel. Amazing restaurants all over that casino, right? Plus, you have the Potawatomi Sportsbook Kitchen, which is amazing as well. All-day brunch, 48 beers on tap, dozen different specialty cocktails. The sportsbook itself, 2,000 square feet. That's how big that big screen is. Over 30 sporting events at one time. 2 levels. You can have the second level you can have for private dinners or lunches or birthday parties or anniversary parties or whatever. You can rent out right there at the Potawatomi Sportsbook. It's amazing. Homemade desserts and pastries made on site as well. And Potawatomi is giving away over $300,000 in prizes. It's autumn action. Yeah, you heard that right. Over $300,000 in prizes, courtesy of our friends over at Potawatomi Casino Hotel. Autumn action runs November 1st through the 20th, and you can earn entries playing with your rewards card. Prize drawings happen on Thursdays between 5 and 8 p.m. If you win, you get to pick your prize from the prize board. All leftover prizes go into a rollover jackpot drawing. For more info, go online at Potawatomi.com. Must be 21 years of age or older and a reward member to play. Charlie Sounds of the Day, straight ahead. Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Sparky here. Wisconsin Sports Daily served up by Wendy's. Sparky here. Charlie Hughes on the other side of the glass still to come. John McLaughlin, Bucks legend, comes up at 3 o'clock. Tyler Dunn, golongtd.com, give us his thoughts on the NFL trade deadline. We'll jump into that at 3:40. Some interesting numbers on Jordan Love I got actually somebody tweeted at me as far as Jordan Love versus man versus Jordan Love versus zone, and then how he compares to the rest of the league in both of those categories. I want to jump into that in our Green and Gold update coming up at 4 o'clock today, so stay tuned for that. With that all being said, let me tell you that Sports Talk on Wisconsin Sports Radio Network is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today.
What sound clips will Chicago Charlie pick today for Sparky? Will Sparky become enraged? Will laughter ensue? It's time for Charlie's Sound of the Day. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
All right. Charlie's Sounds of the Day brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement in the sports season on Prize Picks. Whether you're a football fan, a basketball fan, or a fan of both like me, it always feels good to be right. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Sparky to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Sparky to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for more details. Charlie, where are we going first?
First up, we're going to head over to Up and Adams with Kay Adams, where former NFL safety TJ Ward was on the show, and he was discussing the Packers' loss to the Panthers and what it means for the Packers.
I think they just don't have the confidence to win every week. You know, sometimes they come into the game and they have belief that they're going to win, and other times they don't. But one thing, you can't go, and then you can't go into a game where have no sacks when you have the best defensive player in the league, or supposedly the best defense.
I swear to God, I thought he said you can't go into a game without having no sex.
That's what I thought for a second, too. I was like, all right.
You sure? He said
sacks.
Not
yes.
sacks.
Sacks, yes. Here we go.
Player in the league, or supposedly the best defensive player that you just traded for, and you don't have any sacks, no quarterback pressures. You have to get to the quarterback in this game. Everybody knows that. So if you're not doing that, you're not going to win. They have to have that killer instinct to finish games. And I believe that goes back to the confidence. Like, you have to know that in the time that we need to get the win, we can go on there and end it. And Green Bay hasn't been doing that. They've been letting teams hang around. 1 week, they're the Packers that you see on paper, and the next week, they're not. So they have to be more consistent. I think that goes back into the locker room and leadership, and something has to change inside. So they have to get that together, because this up and down is not going to get it.
Do you think it's because they're young?
No. Every team is young.
Well, they're the youngest. They're the
young.
youngest team in the NFL for the third straight. When you say leadership, I think, who's the vet? Kenny Clark gone?
Well, I'm thinking the quarterback, obviously, you know, Parsons on defense, and then the head coach. So there's something that you have to bring to your team as a head coach. You have to motivate them. You have to find something that sparks them.
Okay, all well said. Don't have issue with much from what he said. And again, it's not lack of talent necessarily. It's lack of consistency like we talked about. And that is why when you start talking about, well, they play down to their opponent, but when they have a really good opponent, they play really well, which is exactly what I said yesterday when I said, y'all are acting like the season's over. They're not making the playoffs, when in reality, come on, man, like unless they get besieged by injuries here, they're going to be in the playoffs, and then you're going to face top-notch teams. And history says that's when this team plays its best. We'll see on Monday night. Now, if on Monday night, when they play the Eagles and that game's over, we have the Green Bay football postgame show powered by Lakeland University with Tommy Wirtz and myself, and they get drilled 30-3. Okay, then we can revisit how much trouble the Packers are in. But if they play that game and they lose 30-27, or they win 33-30 or whatever, and it's a close game, then will everybody chill out and be like, okay, they're still pretty good. Like, I'm not going to worry about the offense nearly as much as I was after the Carolina game. Or will it be, wow, typical Packers, they played up to their opponent? But that should be a positive when you start talking about how far they can go in the playoffs, Charlie.
It should. I think my biggest thing, I guess, right now is that with the Packers, it doesn't always feel like at this point that they're playing down to those opponents, playing up to the other opponents. I think most of the time they're doing that, but then sometimes they just beat the life out of these bad opponents. Yeah. And then other times they don't play well at all against good opponents. So it's just strange because I don't know what to expect every week from this team. And I think it just needs to stop being that. I think at some point here, the best teams in the league, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the Philadelphia Eagles, whether they win or lose, you know what you're getting out of those teams. I need to start having that with the Green Bay Packers. And right now, again, I just don't feel like we have that same identity.
All right, next one.
Next up here, we're going to head over to First Take, where former NFL quarterback Drew Brees was discussing Jerry Jones calling out Micah Parsons for his leadership abilities.
You hate to take shots at guys that are no longer there, and things that have already been done. But I think if you really look into it, there's a reason that Micah Parsons isn't there, beyond just not being able to get the contract done. If you truly felt in Dallas like he was going to be the core of your defense for the next 8 to 10 years, you would have paid him whatever he needed to get that job done. But obviously there was some doubt there, and Jerry was alluding to that. He was referencing two of the greats right there, DeMarcus Ware and Michael Irvin, as being guys that were the core of those locker rooms for a long time. Obviously he didn't feel that way about Micah, because if he did, they would have gotten that deal done no matter what it cost. Because every team needs core guys in the locker room on both sides of the ball to maintain the culture, the just the overall work ethic, the overall, just how you approach that locker room and building your team so that every young person who comes in knows what the standard is and what's expected of them, so that they could perform at the highest level for that organization for the amount of time that they're there. Every team needs that core. And obviously they didn't feel like he was part of that core.
Let's go back to the first clip. We talk about leadership. So if we believe what he's saying, that was Drew Brees, right? If we believe what Drew Brees is saying, which is clearly maybe he wasn't a leader like Michael Irvin was. Maybe he wasn't a leader like DeMarcus Ware was. And Jared, if I'm going to pay you all that money, you better be a damn vocal leader, and you better be that guy that people want to follow and play with and all that other stuff. If that's the case, then that may be something to look at for the Green Bay Packers. Kenny Clark was a leader. That we know. So is he going to be a leader, Micah Parsons, for this Packers football team or not? Because, as was pointed out, youngest team in the league. And he's young too. It ain't like he's 10 years in the league. That ain't the case. He's only been in the league 4 years. But from that standpoint, the quarterback can lead. The coach can lead. On the defensive side of the football, you got to be the guy that's going to lead. Rashawn Gary's going to do whatever he does. I think McKinney can be a leader. But Micah Parsons is the best player on defense. He has to set the example that they're going to follow. And if he ain't going to go all out and he ain't going to be that maniac type guy on every single play, and other players see that being an issue, then maybe they fall off. And I'm not saying he's not playing hard in every play, but I'm using it as an example of you've got to be that guy that when you're on the sidelines playing the Carolina Panthers that's yelling and screaming, we need to get this ball back for our offense. We got to turn this game around. Let's go get it. That's the type of stuff you need. Maybe he's doing it on the sidelines. I don't know, but that's the type of stuff you want when you pay a guy that much money.
I think from Micah Parsons' perspective, though, at the same time, the Dallas Cowboys, there was no reason for me, at least in my mind, for them to believe he wasn't that leader. He hasn't shown to be that leader up to this point. It's just so weird for Jerry Jones to
had
keep
weekly
going back
talks with Jerry Jones, didn't he?
Right. It's just so weird for Jerry Jones to keep going back to that. And for the Packers to immediately trade for him and then give him that contract right away should speak volumes about the type of player Micah Parsons is. Jerry Jones is absolutely insane at this point.
Yep.
Man.
All right. Clip number 3.
And last up here, we're going to head over to MLB Network, where Tom Verducci, Chris Young, and Robert Flores were discussing Caleb Durbin's nomination as a National League Rookie of the Year finalist.
And we've talked about the Milwaukee Brewers consistently throughout the year and on various network shows about the organization's ability to identify talent. And here's a great example. We talked about Caleb Durbin acquiring, coming over as part of the Devin Williams trade, and then guys immediately provides dividends just like that.
Yeah, I mean, you called it. I mean, came up in the Yankee system. He was born to be a Brewer, the way he plays baseball, right?
That's right?
In these categories, and don't sleep on that bottom one.
Hit by pitches.
I mean, he's got that Craig Biggio ability to boost that on-base percentage by not giving any ground. Go ahead, hit me.
Yeah, you think of a guy who fits right into the Brewers system. Caleb Durbin was the perfect guy. Not a lot of pop, but just enough pop. Not a lot of speed, but enough to almost steal 20 bases this season. He was extremely impactful and played right into the vibe of what the Brewers had going.
It is pretty crazy when you think of when they got Caleb Durbin and you looked at him and, well, you may not have. I did. I looked at him and said, okay, slap hitter, great. Nice bench player. That's all he's going to be. And then all of a sudden they don't go out and get a power hitting third baseman like we begged all offseason for. So now he gets forced to have to play third base. Does he have the strongest arm? No. Is he necessarily the quickest defensively? Maybe not, but he's quick enough, right, to get the job done over there. Long term, is he your solution at third base? No. But if he becomes that utility guy for 5 to 8 years with his Brewers organization, I think you love that for Caleb Durbin, where he gives a guy a break at second base. He gives a guy a break at third base and that type of stuff. Yeah, I think it's worked out really, really well for the Brewers. I think in a perfect scenario, Caleb Durbin is not at third base next year. And maybe he is that guy that comes off the bench and rotates in, or Terang goes to short and Durbin ends up at second. Maybe that's how he fits, and you get a real bat for third base that can has some power to it. But nobody can be mad at Caleb Durbin. I think he overperformed anybody's expectations coming into the year.
No, I think he bought himself 5 years of an NFL or MLB career, longer than what he was already predicted to have at that point by having the season that he did now. MLB Pipeline put out their top 10 rookies that they feel like will be able to grow off of this season. He was not on that top 10 list. So it's nice for him to be able to go out here and put his name into this recognition, again, to buy himself a little bit more time to show what he can do moving forward here. He's had a really awesome journey. It's really cool to see him get here.
How did they get him?
From the Nestor Cortez trade.
For Devin Williams.
Yeah.
So people were mad, oh, Nestor Cortez, and I had high expectations for Nestor Cortez. Charlie will tell you I did. And I think
I remember Cy Young.
Yeah,
talks.
I thought so with Chris Hook. Yeah, and then what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Then he got hurt and was gone most of the year. And then when he comes back, they ended up trading him.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was the end of Nestor Cortez. Everybody's like, oh, they screwed up the Devin Williams trade. Hey, man, Caleb Durbin's here for 5 to 8 years or whatever it is, 4 or 5 years, whatever. You didn't screw anything up. That deal looks great because Devin Williams is not going to be a Yankee.
Even if he doesn't sit here for 4 to 5 more years, this one season was worth more than what Nestor Cortez and Devin Williams did for either of those teams.
Correct. Absolutely right. So they did not get screwed over on that trade for those of you that are still angry about that Devin Williams trade. And furthermore, we talked about this, said last week, 2 weeks ago, ESPN putting out their no, it wasn't ESPN. It was Jim Bowden from The Athletic. And he's projecting Devin Williams back to the Brewers potentially on a 1-year, $10 million deal. And Tommy Wirtz was like, absolutely not. I don't want Devin Williams.
Hell.
Man, I'd do that in a heartbeat. Get out of here.
Yeah, give me Devin Williams back. Why not?
Yes.
Beef up the bullpen a little bit more. Why the hell not?
Every day of the week. I put Devin Williams back there with Uribe, with McGill, and with Ashby and those guys. Hell,
sign me up, baby.
Yes, man. Do that every day of the week. How about Shota Imanaga? We'll get to that at 4:40 because I can't wait to talk to Charlie about that one. He ain't going to be a Cub. It doesn't look like it anymore. Coming up next, John McLaughlin, Bucks legend. We'll get his thoughts on the Bucks so far this season. It's Wisconsin Sports Daily, served up by Wendy's, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Steve, Sparky, Fifer with you.